Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butts-Chester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about my guest. I'll be spending time with Sybil Brodie today, and we'll be talking about her book, Gems of Encouragement. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Sybil. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you, Dr. Angela, for having me on. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Now, I cannot wait to talk to you about your book, but we have a little bit of a tradition around here, and that is we give every guest an opportunity to tell us a little bit about themselves. We realize there may be a listener that is unfamiliar with you or your work. First question to you is, what makes you you?
Okay, I was born in a little mining town in Ontario, Canada. I was born again at the Salvation Army. I married my childhood sweetheart, Neil Brodie. We had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. I love reading, writing, not arithmetic. Electronics, where I have to stay away from Apple books, or Apple stores, I mean. My past occupations are many, waitressing, secretarial, building, renovating homes and cottages, writer, poet, but mostly I love being a wife, mother, and homemaker. I have a deep love for Israel and missions. I'm prayer ministry leader at my biblically based church. I write monthly articles for my church website and subscribers list, and I have a second book on the go. Though saved at an early age, I strayed away from the Lord for years, coming back to my senses in my early 50s. And that's it. And fun and laughter, I know about that too. So
I like it. I like it. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that this was one of the best ways to share your information with the world?
It's one of the best ways I've found. I never set out to be an author. It was completely directed by God on over years of learning different lessons.
I find that many of the authors that I've had the opportunity to speak with, the majority of them said, absolutely right. I never thought that I would be a writer, and in many cases, author of several books. So you are definitely in good company there. Now, when it comes to the title of your book, Gems of Encouragement, I love the title of the book. If I saw that on the shelf, I would definitely pick it up and thumb through it. With that being said, how did the title come to you? Did it come first? Did it develop out of your writings? What's the story there?
No, basically, I just came up with I started it. It's rather a long process. So basically, I went into, I used to write songs and secular songs and poems when I was young. And then I just had time when I was older to get back to writing through. It developed through a church I was at where they asked me to be editor of their yearly newsletter, which turned out to be, it grew to 4 times a year. And anyways, I learned a lot of my writing through putting articles in on that and having other people write for it as well. And then when my husband and I moved and changed churches, I started writing a monthly article called Encourage Gems, and then 4 years after my husband passed into heaven, I spent a month down in Florida and assembled most of my previous encouragements, along with some other articles I had written, and I put them into the book, which I called Gems of Encouragement.
I like it. I like it. Now, I try to ask this question of all of my guests, and that is, would you say that your book is appropriate for someone as young as high school, or do you think perhaps college age and older? Do you need a little bit more life experience to appreciate what you've shared in your book?
I would say I would say high school and up from there. They would certainly learn. There's some articles in it that would encourage them, I think. But basically, I would say probably more in college age and adults. But certainly, high school could certainly benefit from some of them.
Now, when it comes to the most appropriate way to use your book, your resource, I know that authors have a very beautiful way of kind of instructing the reader in that you develop chapters or sections, or you group according to category or some type of fashion for us to understand how to utilize what we're about to read. With that being said, is there a most correct way to read your book? Should we start with page 1, or can we open up the book and start anywhere?
You can open it up and start anywhere on it. You'd be more beneficial for you to kind of go through the beginnings and go through the sections, because they lead up to more of my present time and more of things that I learned along the way, sort of more in those categories on it. I'm hoping that it will help people find, especially those that are hurting, depressed, fearful, feeling hopeless, have no joy or laughter in their lives. I'm hoping it brings them encouragement, hope, laughter, and joy. And all of it is directed to Jesus. He's the only hope they'll ever have that will answer all their problems. And the lies answers and secular answers that are going on. One of the things that people like about my book is that each article is a story on its own, meaning it can be digested in small bursts and varying reading lengths. So readers can open it up at any point, read as much as they want or have time for, and then close it again and pick it up at a later, perhaps more convenient time. So it's also to help those who need a pick-me-up after a long, difficult day, along with your cup of coffee.
Now, you chose to make your book a devotional guide that will motivate people who you feel may be lost or looking to have a closer relationship with Christ. Why was that important to you?
Well, I think that people are crying out for help and solutions. And I think I found where they can find that help, that fountain of youth and everlasting life, of which people are constantly searching. Those who will benefit from my book are those hurting, depressed, fearful, feeling hopeless, have no joy or laughter. So I feel that my book will lead them to the tower of strength that I found in Jesus.
Now I know that I love a great devotional. I have an app on my phone that gives me that daily devotional, and I've found that just throughout my lifetime, I used to think that it was something that only like moms did, or something that only grandmothers did. But I found that I was really inspired by them, in that we're able to now have devotionals that are topical, in that it could be just for women, or for moms, like for new moms. It is so amazing how creative authors have become in the way in which they present their devotional. So thank you for being a part of that group, of being mindful of others in that way. Now, how would you say that your book has a connection to what's going on in the world today? There are so many believers around the world, and they need that encouragement. How do you think your book speaks to those folks?
Well, to gain the power of God's Word, you must first read it. The more you read it, the more you gain the power and discernment of being able to see the truth along with the world's lies and half-truths and innuendos. So, like all the people in the Bible were sinners just like we are. David lied and murdered to cover up his sins of lust and adultery with Bathsheba. But God said David was a man after his own heart. Even though David repented, he recognized that he had to pay the price of his sin. But he never stopped loving or praising God, for he accepted his failings and knew he had to accept ownership of his own actions. And I think ownership is really lacking in today's world. Because of God's grace and Jesus' death on the cross, we can do the same. But this present culture doesn't believe in sin or truth. And until they realize they are at the end of themselves and begin searching for what is really true, they have no hope. So my prayer is that they will see God working in and through my life, trials and happenings, and recognize that Jesus is the only answer, and then seek him out for themselves. The Bible's a history book about his story, Jesus, and relates how all our problems have been dealt with in the past. As Solomon said, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, everything is meaningless unless Jesus is in it. And I'm praying that my book will direct them to him.
Oh, I love that answer. Oh, that was so beautiful. And you are so right. Anything that we can do that's going to encourage someone else to continue their walk with Christ is always a beautiful thing. I love that answer. Love, love, love it. Now, I want to make sure that I give out the ISBN number for your book. And we are doing that because we want to make sure that everyone gets the most current edition of your book. And that's right, listeners. Many times authors will update, we'll kind of spruce it up a bit and give you the most current vision for what we have for the book. So I am going to give you the ISBN number. Now, many of you know that you can purchase a book anywhere you want if you have the ISBN number. That means if you want to utilize your local bookstore, you can, because you're going to give them this ISBN number, and that ensures that you have the correct book. The ISBN number is 978-1-63892-478-4. I'm going to rattle that off. Here we go. 978-1-63892-478-4. and that will ensure that you have the most recent copy of the book. Now, before we go to break, though, Sybil, if someone wants to reach out to you personally, what is the best way for them to get to you?
The best way for me is for my email, spbrodie@encouragem.com, or my website, www.encouragem.com.
I love it. Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this.
Discovery. No, just a sec.
What would it look like if we listened more? Could the right voice, the right set of words, bring us all just a little closer? Get us to open up, even push us further? It could, if we took the time to listen. The most inspiring minds, the most compelling stories. Download Audible and listen for a change.
Hi everyone, Dr. Angela here. Did you know that Daily Spark is now on Facebook? That's right, you can visit with me at facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I want to know more about what you're thinking. I'd love to know, which interview did you find the most entertaining or the most informative? I want to talk to you, and I want you to be able to talk to me. Simply visit facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is Sybil Brodie, and we're talking about her book, Gems of Encouragement. I know, such an awesome title. So, Miss Sybil, let me ask you this question. I know that for many authors, there are the joys of writing and then there are the pains of writing, and that many times people experience writer's block, or they get about 90% done and they just can't figure out how to wrap it up. I don't want to ask you about the negative. I want to stay on the positive side of life. So my question to you is, do you have any moments that were really highlights, or they were joys, or they are, using a little bit of the title of your book, they were gems to write?
Yes, there's quite a few areas, but basically the highlight for me in writing this book was seeing how much Jesus had done for me as I was editing and placing these articles. Some of them I'd forgotten because it was a few years back, and I put them into these sections of my book, and I realized then how much my writing had evolved over this timeline as I studied the Bible and applied its attributes and truths to my life. I marveled at how much God had taught me about himself, and in that way about myself, and how very much he loved me and paid the high price that was really on my head in order to rescue me. I think one of the ones that keep coming out to me was after my husband's death, about 6 months after I wrote The Fig Tree, a poem, and it's on page 201 there. But at that point, my life was really, I felt like I was in limbo. And it just tells about me feeling so very far away from the Lord. And then it's how he brought me back is other articles I wrote after that. But if I had to highlight something in my book, it would be The Fig Tree. which, and as well as I had a dream, and that one was something that got me over the hurdle after about a year after his death. My daughter's death has been, I haven't, the articles aren't in this book on that. Hopefully they'll be in my next one. But she died 5 years after him. So I didn't, that hasn't been in it, those articles, and how they affected me. But there's also lots of fun and laughter in there. I wrote one of my friends talking about her time, my time with my guardian angel, and it might lead you to some laughter. And so there's different parts like that in it, and you can just pick it up anywhere, like I mentioned, and read one of the stories and get something out of it. A lot of fun things in it as well. Like when I was my only time as a scrutineer, things like that are in it. But if I had something to say, it would be the fig tree.
You know, I love it when authors choose to share bits and pieces of their lives with us. It allows us to see your human side, but at the same time, we are allowed to see how God is working in your life as well. And I love that you were willing to share such a vulnerable time, or such a sensitive time, the passing of any loved one. No two people necessarily grieve exactly alike, but the grieving process is something that we all must go through. So I'm happy that you shared that, because I feel that will help someone in their time. The happy times are always great to share, but sometimes people are afraid to share those times as well. But I, as a therapist, speaking with my therapist hat on right now, I find that when people share about that time in their lives, it helps someone else who is going through it as well. And they realize that they are not alone, and that they are, what they're experiencing, what they're feeling is quite normal. So thank you so much for including that as well. Now, if there is one thing in particular that you want to make sure that your readers pick up from this book, what nugget of wisdom would that be?
The reason I wanted the people to take, or what I want them to take from my book, is that they will see how God can work in and through my life and trials, and then that may give them hope and direction. I really want them to always, like, this is a spiritual battle we're in, and we only have this one life to make the decision on where we spend our forever after. Hopefully my stories will show them there is a God who wants to take their burdens upon himself and have a personal relationship with them. So I'm praying that my book will lead them to him, and they will find the encouragement, the enlightenment, the inspiration, and joy that only Jesus can provide for them.
Oh, I like that answer. That is so wonderful. And you know what? You are so right. I know that many times people always give that answer like you just don't know what God can do for you. You really need to try God. Let me tell you, when I was younger, um I had already had a beautiful relationship with the Lord. So I understood, but I find that as I get older, I understand more and more. So I am so grateful that people continue to encourage people to have that private time with God, to spend time with the Lord however they can, whenever they can, wherever they can, because it really and truly does make a difference in our day and in our lives. So thank you for those words of encouragement. I love that. I love it. Now, I don't want to assume that this is the only thing that you have going on in your life, and I know that many authors have so many books like in the back of their mind that they're constantly writing, they're constantly creating and doing. So my question for you is, what is next for you? Do you have any books in the works, or are you thinking about doing anything? You've updated this book, and that might be what was next for you. But I want to give you an opportunity, if by chance there's a sneak peek at something new, what's going on there?
Well, I've been working steadily on these monthly uh, encouragement articles for my church and my website, along with sending it out to email subscribers. But so I've been taking all of those and I'm putting them into a new book, which I'm hoping to get out by the end of the year, if at all possible. And I've named it Down by the Riverside. Now, my husband Neil wanted to be buried down by the riverside, the cemetery we have here, because he said that was the only waterfront he could now afford. So, unfortunately, all the plots were filled there, so near the river. So he chose up in the open. As he said, he's cold all the time, so the sunshine would be great. Fortunately, his old worn-out body is in that grave, but he is up in heaven with the Lord Jesus, waiting for his new body. So I'm going to, that's I'm going to be doing. I'm working on this other booklet. I'm busy and active in my church, and I'm getting out my encouragement articles. If anybody wants to see them, they can see them on my website. I put them up there all the time.
Oh, when you said Down by the Riverside, boy, did it just take me back to being a little kid and doing our daily devotional. I went to Christian school, so we had devotional every day, and it was just one of my most favorite songs as a little kid. But then you said about being warm in the sun, and it just made me think about the beautiful walks that we used to go on, my parents and I, and just the memories that when you say certain things, how it takes you to a particular time, and those two things for me were just two beautiful memories, and how we can honor those that have passed on by doing just very simple things that would mean a lot to them. And I love how the next book is by the riverside. What a beautiful way of kind of paying homage to your husband. I love that. I love that. Now, I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit, and I do want to ask you for our inspiring authors, because I have not asked this question in a while, and that is, if there is one thing that you wish that you had known before you started the process of writing that would have made a huge difference for you, is there something that you've learned along the way that you wish you had known in the beginning that would have made it just a tad easier?
Too many things to list. Just, it really was. I learned so many things that I didn't know, especially when you're doing a first book. It's really I was green behind the gills, so to speak. So I learned an awful lot on how to get it up and in people's hands, for one thing, on it. But no, I can't pinpoint any one thing outside of that being the hardest thing, was getting it out to be read.
Yeah, I hear that answer a lot. It's like just the marketing aspect of it and just getting it out there and making sure that people know that it is available. Agreed. Marketing seems like it is always the hardest part. But we are so glad that you came on to Daily Spark with Dr. Angela and you are sharing it out with our audience. We appreciate your doing that. Well, Miss Sybil Brodie, we are out of time, but thank you so much for spending time with us here today and enlightening, inspiring, and empowering our audience. Now, before I let you go, can you remind everyone what is the title of your book? And if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Okay, the title of my book is Gems of Encouragement. And the easiest and fastest way to get to me would be my website, which is www.encouragem.com.
I love it. Thank you again for being a guest on the show today.
You're very welcome, Dr. Angela, and I thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And listeners, thank you for joining us here today as well. You could have been anywhere and you chose to spend it with us, and I thank you for doing so. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.